ecosystems of data on the SDGs and their implementation, and then building stronger monitoring and evaluation systems. And then when we pair some of these indicators, the data that we have, with also the insights, the qualitative insights from communities, businesses, academia, civil society, through the VNR process, we get a truer picture of who's being left behind and why. And so this is part of the central promise of the 2030 Agenda, really leaving no one behind. So going beyond those national averages, and SCAP stands ready to support this work, really looking at the national SDG visualization, the data. Many countries in their VNRs have used some of the tools like the SDG tracker, as well as the Leaving No One Behind platform, to really look at who's being left behind in individual SDGs and some of the drivers that may be behind the data that we see. And then linking this to the voluntary local reviews. So if we think of the voluntary national reviews as kind of the heartbeat of follow-up and review on the agenda, the voluntary local reviews are like the local pulse. So that brings the agenda into city halls, provinces, districts, municipalities, where people live and experience change. So we want to use the VLRs to help local governments align plans and budgets with the SDG targets, and also mobilize communities, businesses, and other stakeholders in a virtuous feedback loop. And so that's why bringing these two conversations together and including the subnational level is incredibly important, where we see the value of connecting these so that local lessons and data can inform reporting, as well as national commitments to enable local delivery. And then finally, peer learning ties it all together, which is part of what we're doing here today, sharing and learning from countries who have recently and have a lot of experience in their voluntary national reviews, as well as local reviews. And we see when we have these teams come together and share their lessons, the quality of the reviews improve. And through twinning and study tours, we have facilitated VNR coordinators, statistics offices, parliaments, civil society, youth networks, private sector, for example, to come and exchange methods for many components of the VNR. And these aren't one-off events. The idea is to build a community. So for example, Pakistan and Sri Lanka collaborated on their second VNRs in 2022. Nepal exchanged with Armenia for their preparation of the VNR. And then for 2025, Bhutan, Kazakhstan, and Malaysia helped shared insights on their VNRs as well. So the idea is to take advantage of these opportunities and these platforms to really build on this so that the SDGs as a promise can have more momentum. And in South and Southwest Asia, we've seen the talent, the tools, the solidarity to accelerate progress. So I encourage you to exchange openly, learn. We have wonderful examples to be shared from the region, and I look forward to the discussion.
And thanks so much, Juliet. So we're going to jump into some experiences from the countries who have done VNRs in recent years. So I'm going to invite from Bhutan, Ms. Tashi Choden, who's the Senior Planning Officer in the Strategic Planning Division of the Office of Cabinet Affairs and Strategic Coordination, Cabinet Secretariat of the Royal Government of Bhutan. So may I invite her to come online?
Hello, hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, please go ahead, we can hear you.
Right, my name is Tashi Choden, and as introduced, I work as a Senior Planning Officer with the Office of Cabinet Affairs and Strategic Coordination. This is the office under the Prime Minister's Office, which is the designated national coordinating agency for SDGs in Bhutan. And thank you, Chair, again for inviting me for this panel session, and greetings to all the panelists and colleagues. I'm really happy to share about Bhutan's reflection from our third voluntary national review, which we presented earlier this year. And really, I think this is the third time that Bhutan has shared our national review. And over the years, it has really changed how we have started planning our national development plans as well. All the past VNRs have directly shaped our 13th five-year plan, which is Bhutan's main vehicle for implementing the SDGs. And the 13th five-year plan is also the first plan post our LDC graduation. So the plan now integrates, as always done before, SDG targets right into our national key results areas for the next 5 years. So this has really strengthened and taken into account all the findings from VNR into our national planning process. And secondly, I believe over the years, we've really grasped into how we can use evidence-based policymaking and how we use data into informing our planning process. For this time, we also took the support of the SGAP supported Leave No Behind analytical tool for our disaggregated data and intersectional analysis. So over time, we hope that this becomes regularized into our national statistics planning system. And thirdly, I think it's really how we coordinate. So this time around, with the Prime Minister's office directly being the national coordinating agency for SDGs, I think the whole process brought together ministries, CSOs, youth groups, and the private sector, which has made the SDG coordination mechanism more integrated and more participatory with the authority and the reach that the Prime Minister's office has and the value we place on achieving our SDG targets as well. Moving forward, our focus is really to move away from alignment and then focus more on acceleration of achieving these targets. Bhutan has always done great in terms of aligning SDGs with their national targets, but now we need to move forward into implementation and acceleration. That is through fast-tracking our 13th five-year plan and also our 21st century economic roadmap. So these two are our main delivery vehicles for SDGs, and we link economic diversification with green and inclusive growth through these two documents. And most importantly, to strengthen our domestic resource mobilization with ODA declining and LDC graduation behind us. We're really finalizing our sustainable financing framework and then trying to attract innovative sources for financing ourselves. And lastly, the main key learning moving forward is to really keep refining and improving our data and monitoring systems, especially for local government, so that our progress can be tracked in real time. So I will leave at that for now, and I look forward to share more along with the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jordan. Really, I pick up from that, really, the strengths you had of really, using the VNR as an integral part of the national development planning process that you regularly do, actually. And then coming at kind of from a central government authority, in the cabinet that would bring in the line ministries, but also, I guess, to mobilize the whole population too. It's very strong as well. And then how you used it to really refine the data issue and improving the planning monitoring indicators and the system around that. So thank you very much for sharing that. Those who have questions, please keep your notes, and then later after we hear all of this, I'll open the floor. So we're going to move from Bhutan in the mountains over to the seas in Sri Lanka. So online, we have Dr. Sulakshana Jayawardena, who is the Director General Corporate Affairs of the Ministry of Finance, Finance Planning and Economic Development of the Government of Sri Lanka. So over to you.
Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues and friends. It is great honor to address this distinguished gathering on behalf of the government of Sri Lanka. Allow me to express our sincere appreciation to the government of Pakistan, SCAP, Sustainable Development Policy Institute, and also Institute for Global Environmental Strategies for convening this important forum on accelerating the 2030 agenda through voluntary national and local reviews. Sri Lanka, of course, we do have the commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals is rooted in national policy. The enactment of the Sustainable Development Act number 19 of 2017 provided the legal and institutional framework in this regard, and also that same act, with the same act, provision of the same act, we established a Sustainable Development Council in the same year as the coordinating body. So, Sustainable Development Council is gazetted under the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. With the guidance of the ministry, SDG approach integrates sustainable development principles into fiscal policy, planning and national budgeting. We have so far presented 2 voluntary national reviews, VNR, in 2018 and 2022, and are preparing for our 3rd VNR in 2027. So with the first VNR presented in 2018, laid the groundwork for national coordination. It aligned national policy frameworks such as Vision 2025 and Blue-Green Budget 2018 with the SDGs. While strong progress was recorded in education, health, and social development, those are the findings of this VNR. The review identified gaps in data, financing, and institutional coordination. It called for the establishment of national SDG data system and a whole of government approach to ensure coherence between planning, budgeting, and reporting. So the second VNR that was conducted in 2022 marked a new phase of inclusivity and evidence-based planning. It was led by the Sustainable Development Council in close collaboration with the Department of National Planning, the Department of Census and Statistics, the Department of Project Management and Monitoring, and other line agencies, key institutions. More than 700 stakeholders from across the country participated in the program or this effort. And with the 400 participants, we conducted validation workshop with the 400 participants. The process introduced Sri Lanka National SDG Data Portal, expanding measurable indicators from 46 in 2017, and in 2021 it was 104 indicators, and right now it is 159 indicators that we have identified and established a monitoring and evaluation framework supported by SCAP. Importantly, SCAP's VNR twinning program between Sri Lanka and Pakistan, I think it was mentioned by the inception, Ms. Juliet was in this aspect, and Pakistan enabled mutual peer learning and strengthened institutional capacity on both sides, a shining example of South-South collaboration. So what are the key lessons and also the takeaways with these 2 VNRs? There are 6 takeaways that we have identified during this exercise. First one is inclusivity and participation. That is essential. So the 2022 VNR demonstrated the broad stakeholder engagement, including youth, academia, civil society, and the private sector. That transformed the review process into a shared national dialogue, because all these stakeholders are there, all the line agencies, the private sector, and other societies. Then second one, institutional coherence matters. That is the second takeaway from these 2 efforts. the Ministry of Finance, together with the SDC and other line ministries, is working to translate VNR findings into sectoral plans and national budget priorities, because we identified these priorities under the national budget to implement and allocate financing for this implementation of these priorities. And third one, we identified the takeaway lesson is data systems are the backbone of evidence-based decision making. Through ESCAP support, we now have a functional national SDG dashboard that integrated data from key sectors. Yet we recognize the need to further institutionalize reporting obligations across ministries and subnational levels. The fourth takeaway is financing and partnerships must drive implementation. That is also utmost important that we learn during this two exercise or the preparation of VNRs. Sri Lanka's inclusive and sustainable business strategy mobilizes private capital, promotes green financing. In 2021, under UN Department of Economic Social Affairs Partnership Accelerator, Sri Lanka undertook a partnership mapping exercise to identify opportunities for cross-sector collaboration. The fifth one, regional learning is transformative. Our collaboration with Pakistan, this was highlighted through ESCAP's twinning program, highlighted the value of peer exchange and shared accountability. And we believe this model can be replicated throughout South and Southwest Asia. And the sixth one, capacity building and awareness. That is also utmost important. If you can develop or build capacity among the stakeholders, all levels, across the all the stakeholders for implementing relevant actions effectively. So both VNRs identified localization as a key priority, while Sri Lanka has not yet undertaken voluntary local reviews. These are only voluntary national reviews. We yet to conduct voluntary local reviews. We are now strengthening provincial level data systems to capture local progress more accurately. Given our countries, you know that Sri Lanka is a relatively small geographical area or the scale. This approach allows for efficient integration of subnational data into national monitoring systems. It also supports evidence-based planning at the provincial level, ensuring that no community or region is left behind. The government of Sri Lanka, through the Sustainable Development Council, has already approved the preparation of the third voluntary national review to be presented in 2027. We plan to initiate it next year. The budgetary allocation also provision allocated for this endeavor. The review will focus on, based on as per the guidelines, SDGs 6, 7, 9, 11, and 17. The same thematic cluster discussed in this forum. Our objective is to demonstrate how Sri Lanka links data, policy, and finance to create integrated, inclusive, and measurable development outcomes. We also look forward to continue collaboration with ESCAP and our regional partners to enhance data capacity and knowledge sharing. Distinguished delegates, Sri Lanka's VNR journey represents a continuum from institutional foundation 2018 to inclusive participation and evidence-based monitoring 2022, and now to strategic localization and regional integration we planned it 2027. For us, the VNR is not merely a reporting tool. It is a policy accelerator that connects planning, finance, and partnerships. It has helped us align national priorities with global goals and build systems that can withstand economic and environmental shocks. As we look toward 2030, Sri Lanka remains firmly committed to working with our regional partners, ESCAP, and all stakeholders to ensure the sustainable development becomes a lived reality for every citizen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jayawardena. I mean, I'm just reflecting, that really Sri Lanka, you have taken this VNR process and now in the future VLRs as, really a kind of regular exercise too. And like Bhutan, also, using it for planning, and monitoring, improving the data, mobilizing people, and also, this coordination structure you have with the Sustainable Development Council seems to be key in it. But I'm also thinking that you did this 2022 was a really difficult period for Sri Lanka, no? You had the COVID, of course, and the pandemic and the crisis around economy, and then you had the political, despite that, you still did all this. And no, in a way, it's very interesting to note that, as well, and to commend everybody, the government and the people for continuing this exercise, and if it's really proving useful to really continue it as well as a national process. So from the mountains of Bhutan to the seas of Sri Lanka, we're going to go to is it the largest delta system in the world or the second? It's the largest, right? Delta. Yes, of Bangladesh. So happy to have you back, Ambassador, please.
Thank you, Ms. Tanaka. I'm sorry for showing up late, but I did manage to catch most of the presentation by our Sri Lankan colleague, and it was feeling like deja vu because I could reiterate some of the process-related issues that he was sharing with us. So I think in Bangladesh's case, I mean, we also took the VNR exercise quite seriously, and it took almost 8 months of preparation. And I was looking at some numbers. There were 4,000 people who were involved in the process. But then again, in a country of 180 million plus people, 4,000 is probably only a tiny fraction. So obviously, a large segment of the population remains outside the process. But I think the participants were selected from different segments of the population with particular emphasis on having the voices of the youth. And one reason for that is, of course, as you have been hearing since yesterday, we had this youth-led uprising in Bangladesh last year when the youth actually forcefully told us that they want their voices to be heard, and they were not quite happy with the status quo. They wanted some fundamental reforms in the country. So obviously their voices mattered, and the efforts from the government side was to factor in those voices to the extent possible. So the 8 months of VNR preparations that actually, in a way, organically, but perhaps unwittingly, coincided with all these reform initiatives that were spearheaded by this interim administration that we now have in place. So what this government did, they formed a number of reform commissions looking at a whole range of issues, from constitutional reform and judicial reform to women's affairs issues, labor reform, anti-corruption, and so forth. So all these reform exercises, they kind of fed into the VNR process. And the subjects that I randomly mentioned, as you can see, they find some correspondence with some of the critical SDG targets. So that stock taking, that reform exercise again, was kind of helpful to come up with a very frank assessment of our SDG progress. And as I was saying at the plenary yesterday, that if you look at our VNR report, at least, I mean, that's what I felt looking back at some of our previous reports, that it was refreshingly very honest and frank. I think we did acknowledge the progresses that have been made under each of the SDG goals, but at the same time, we did make an honest admission about where the challenges and the gaps remain. When COVID-19 struck us, all of us actually, when we were talking about building back better, I think the UN Secretary General and the whole UN system was reminding us that the SDG, the 2030 agenda itself, gave us a blueprint for building back better. And since we had already adopted or appropriated the 2030 agenda into our national development strategies, so obviously that served us well. And going forward, again, as some of the speakers from Bangladesh have been saying it since yesterday, we are looking at the next milestone, which is the LDC graduation from the least developed country status of the UN. So the timeline is November 2026. So now this whole VNR exercise is also being looked at through the prism of this sustainable graduation strategy that we are trying to pursue. Why sustainable graduation? Because, of course, we had seen in the experience of some other countries that graduation can often not become quite sustainable because of both internal issues, but also external shocks. So how to make sure that the graduation is not just sustainable, but as to borrow from you in the morning, is also just. How to ensure that it does not create a lot of tension and unrest within different parts of the society. So I think the VNR exercise also helped us kind of rehash that whole strategy that we have been undertaking, that how to kind of relate it to the challenges that we are envisaging with LDC graduation and so forth. And now, with the current geoeconomics landscape, especially with the trade tension that we are witnessing, you can imagine that for countries like us, especially heavily trade-dependent countries like us, the situation, the prognosis is not, of course, very promising. There are valid concerns, especially among our business communities, about this whole graduation exercise, because they have been quite used to some of these trade preferences that they were enjoying. And with LDC graduation, when these preferences go away, how would we adjust and cope with the new situation, new realities? I think from that perspective also, the VNR was somewhat helpful. Now, why I dwelt on the graduation issue, because you asked me about this question yesterday and I didn't delve into it. I was holding it back for this session. But also to relate to Pakistan's situation, because as I was saying in the morning, even if we are an LDC by UN criteria, but as per World Bank criteria, we are all lower middle income countries. And that way, we are kind of in a comparable situation, especially countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. We are all in that category, lower middle income countries. And that is probably one category that the UN system as a whole has not really invested in much. We have been talking about the least developed countries, the landlocked developing countries, these small island developing countries, but the challenges of middle income countries, because many of our countries, we are getting stuck or trapped in this middle income situation, something that's known as the middle income trap, right? But that is, of course, not our end goal. And how do we kind of overcome that situation? That is probably something that we have to look forward to. And that's where, again, let's use the 2030 agenda and this review exercise as kind of a guiding reference document to develop our strategies going forward. I would conclude again by saying what our Sri Lankan colleague was saying, talking about the whole partnership issue. Again, it's a complicated scenario as we move forward. We have seen that partly in Sevilla this year during the Financing for Development conference. Yesterday, it was quite refreshing to hear the UN resident coordinator here when he said two things. One is that we probably have to look a bit more inwards now, kind of give the emphasis on domestic resource mobilization. I do agree with him, but partly. Where I don't quite agree with him is that the international community as a whole had taken some commitments, be it under the 2030 agenda or the Paris Agreement or all these global documents that we had adopted. And we cannot just let the advanced developed economies off the hook just because they are not probably ready or they are showing their reluctance all of a sudden. We have to keep reminding them that you have, or we have all collectively undertaken these commitments. And this has been based on a delicate bargain. On our part, as developing countries, we also made commitments to deliver on certain things on the promise or assurance that the developed economies, developed countries, will also respect their part of the bargain. And that is, they would be offering us concessional financing or easy access to technology or capacity building support. And we have to keep making that point. If we just reconcile with the fact that, yes, the attention should be only on domestic resource mobilization, which is kind of problematic, as I think the honorable ministers, when they were speaking quite eloquently, did make that point yesterday. We cannot just let go of the obligation, international obligation, that our counterparts in the developed world are bound to. And so with the support of our partners in the civil society, in the private sector, in the UN system, we have to keep making this point quite forcefully, actually. But I think, and that's my final point, I think the UN resident coordinator said one thing, which is, again, we don't often hear, but I entirely agree with him that the time for small pilots is over. I think if there is one thing that I'll take back from this conference is that particular point. That is my perpetual complaint about the way the UN functions in countries like Bangladesh. You see proliferation of multiplication of small-scale projects, but somehow, even if they are proven to be effective, there is solid evidence base, they don't get scaled up sufficiently. And that's why you don't really see the kind of impact that it should have in countries like Pakistan or Bangladesh with 200 or 180 million people. So I think going forward, that is also something that we have to keep pressing for, that let's focus on a few projects, not everything. Let's not try to fix everything through UN projects, but let's look at projects that can really have a high impact across different sectors of the society. That if we can at least move in that direction through this Pact for the Future, through the UN 80 exercise, I think at least given the slowness of the multilateral process, that would already be a huge gain for us. And let's keep talking about that in that direction. I think I'll stop at this point. Thank you, Bye.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. It's really, I think, great to have different sessions because we evolve in the thinking as we go from session to session. No, I think there were very many, I think experience from Bangladesh, information you shared, but also I think, further, I guess, themes that we really need to think together and of course, from each country perspective to propose what is the narrative or the paradigm that needs to really frame how the cooperation around development goes. Mix actually the middle income countries, right? I mean, these are in a way arbitrary, right? Because I mean, countries go through vicissitudes of change, right? And Sri Lanka is a case in point of, again, given what happened in 2022 or between 2021 2022, of course, it becomes a tension of development partners to actually re-engage or maybe increase. But yeah, that adaptability also needs to be there, and I think it's a big question for the UN and development partners in general. What is really meaningful, impactful, or I wouldn't say impactful, that's too ambitious, but really meaningful and some useful, development assistance or cooperation, whatever that is in terms of advice or whatever. I think we also need to learn, how to kind of contextualize our support or our conversation in a way with the different governments and stakeholders all around the world. I also note that, LDC graduation, it's one kind of, I guess, I don't know, like a milestone, but definitely, it may serve certain.
Certainly for Bangladesh, because that would be the largest LDC economy that would be graduating.
Right.
There had been other LDCs that had graduated,
Yeah.
but they're relatively small economies like the
Right.
Maldives or Vanuatu, for example.
Yeah,
But,
Bhutan just graduated in November
Yeah,
21, and
exactly.
Nepal in the same cycle as Bangladesh, but of course under very different circumstances. We learn from all of them. So thank you very much for sharing. We are going to have a video message from Malé in Maldives. So we go back to island. It's a small island developing state. So the mayor of Malé, Honorable Mr. Adam Asim, Malé City Council, the Republic of Maldives. So please share the video.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues and friends. Maldives stands at the heart of the Maldives and at the forefront of sustainable urban transformation. It's the commitment driving our city forward. I am Mayor Adam Azim, and it is an honor to share this message with the 9th South and Southwest Asia Sub-Regional Forum on Sustainable Development, held under the theme Transformative, Equitable, Innovative and Coordinated Actions for the 2030 Agenda and its SDGs for Sustainable Future for All. Although I could not join in person, I am pleased to contribute through this video message. My vision is to transform the Council from a traditional municipal service provider into a dynamic organization, one that actively addresses economic, social and environmental challenges. This transformation is rooted in inclusive, forward-thinking urban governance with people and sustainability at its core. Our voluntary local review VLR was more than just a report. It marked a pivotal shift in how we approach governance and sustainable development. It sparks a cultural transformation within the municipality, embedding the SDGs into the heart of our planning and decision making. The VLR process fostered collaboration across departments, encouraged transparency, and empowered stakeholders to co-create solutions for the future of our city. By aligning with sustainable development goals, Mal City is fostering a resilient, equitable and thriving urban environment. The voluntary local review VLR launched internationally in South Korea in September is a roadmap for action. Implementation began even before the validation phase concluded, reflecting a commitment to immediate progress. All municipal and social initiatives are now screened for SDG alignment, ensuring strategic and measurable impact. Plans for the coming year focus on accelerating progress in key areas like climate resilience, inclusive services, and participatory governance. Given Mal City's unique urban challenges, limited land, dense population, and severe climate threats such as sea level rise and flooding, climate resilience is a top priority. The city is actively seeking international support to develop coastal and climate protection strategies. The VLR process has empowered stakeholders, highlighted urgent needs, and reinforced the city's commitment to sustainable, inclusive development. As a small island development state, we face significant limitations in capacity and human resources. So today, we call on our global partners to stand with us to help us reach these critical milestones for Mali City. One of the biggest breakthroughs from our voluntary local review was launching Mali City's first land information system. With geo-coded data across all wards, we are finally seeing a complete picture of our city's special realities and where we need to act faster. Our land use plan is being shaped through inclusive consultations, ensuring every voice is heard. These conversations aren't just formalities, they are the foundations of a resilient and informed future. The VLR also transformed how we engage with our community. It sparked new platforms that bring together civil society, businesses, and youth. Not just consult, but to co-create solutions rooted in lived experiences. This is no longer about government acting alone. It's about shared leadership where everyone has a seat at the table. That's the true power of localizing the SDGs and completing our first VLR. Looking ahead, our priorities are clear: climate adaptations, inclusive public spaces, and digital governance. We have started aligning our budget and reporting with SDG goals, and we are just getting started. The VLR was a catalyst. Together, we are showing that local action drives global change. Let's keep building a resilient, inclusive, and future-ready Mali city. Today, more cities are stepping up to localize the SDGs through voluntary local reviews. I invite you to take the lead because the future starts locally and the time to act is now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
that was from the
a
mayor
good
of
day.
Male, the capital city of Maldives, that did its first voluntary local review, of course, the first VLR in the Maldives. So with that country and city experience sharing, just like to invite two people from civil society to share what they have heard from the network of civil society organizations that have participated in the various VNRs or VLRs. So let me start with Ms. Shilpa Lamichane, the Executive Director, Visible Impact Nepal. She's also representing this Asia Pacific regional mechanism of engagement with civil society. So over to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mikiko. I think talking about the voluntary national review and local reviews, I'd like to reflect my experience in Nepal, and definitely government leads the process, government leads the voluntary national reviews and local reviews, but I think government cannot accelerate it alone. We young people, we as civil society organizations, youth clubs, youth networks, we are committed to working alongside the government throughout the process. We don't want to be there as someone who, responds to the decisions already made, or be there when they call us for the validation meeting at the very end. So we want to be there as the co-navigators from the very beginning. And but there are certain challenges that we can see on the ground in Nepal. And I think the first challenge I would refer is regarding the data, because this has come up a number of times. The community-based data, the disaggregated data, the data of the marginalized communities, it's not there. It's usually, there is a national level data, but do we have the data of, we usually have the data nationally on, for example, how many children are out of the school, but do we have data on how many of them are from the Dalit community or from the indigenous community, or how many of the girls are dropping out at grade 8 because of the early marriage? So such data are actually missing at the national level and local level. And I think youth groups and CSOs can really contribute to that thing. I usually refer this data as using the Google Maps, because when we want to go somewhere, we need something. We need where we are and we need our destination. And when we put those two in the maps, then only the map gives the right path or the best route. So the SDGs process have already given us a roadmap on where we should be heading, where we want to go. But countries and the local levels and the nations need data on where we currently are and how far we have come across and which areas we need to focus more. So I see young people's contribution in the focus group discussions, or even the photo stories, or conducting small scale surveys to help the local government actually track the progress on the different SDG goals. Also, talking about the local reviews, Nepal has gone through its third review in 2024, but the local reviews have not started yet, as of my knowledge and information. But the municipalities and the cities have shown the growing interest and they are contributing to the voluntary national review data. So data and evidence gap is the most important thing that I see as a civil society, that we must breach that gap, and maybe we can play a role in that to help the local governments and even the national governments. And secondly, I would also like to talk about the report that civil society organizations usually produce in parallel with the voluntary national review reports of the government, because Nepal has also produced its report 2 times already, in 2020 and also in 2024. We have used different scorecards. We did a lot of pre-consultations, consultations, and we developed something, and that we feel is very inclusive in terms of incorporating the marginalized voices, right? Because usually the official data does not often include the marginalized voices. So I think the reports that we are producing as an alternative report or civil society reports is also very important, and our government has been taking that report into account, and they have been consulting those reports as well to make the report as much as inclusive. Another thing I also want to highlight is that the technology and the digital skills, the civil society organizations, the young people, they say that we're very good in the digital skills and social media skills, and I think we really are. But how much digital technologies, social medias are we using to translate these evidences we have into something that people can really relate and understand? Because if something is there to understand, then only they can relate to it, and it can really drive the action. So I think we have to be using the digital and technologies in terms of the VNR and VLR processes as well. Yeah, I'd like to stop here now.
Thank you very much. I think you raised some, very interesting themes. Dig a little bit more, right? Maybe in the discussion around data gaps. And when you said that, civil society youth can, contribute to it, be good to, understand what you have done or what you've seen done. That would be also, applicable or useful for other countries as well. The civil society report, that I think is important. Maybe that is part of the data gap, filling, but having the space in countries, the government allowing the space for this alternative report, I think is really, really important, because it's not just a report, it's really that process that it also supports. And yes, technology, yes. I mean, we were amazed at what happened in Nepal, Kathmandu last month, right, with the social media. Yes, a lot to learn and think about. So one more person we have here right next to me, Ms. Mamouna Asif is the Assistant International Engagements for the Youth Advocacy Network. So over to you.
His Excellency and honorable panelists and everyone, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. All right. Being a person from a civil society organization, or what I think and what I have observed in past 4.5 years that I'm associated with the civil society organization, is that civil societies and youth networks are doing a great job across South and Southwest Asia at the grassroots level, from promoting gender equality to inclusive education and to climate action campaigns, generating evidence-based evaluations and recommendations for reform in the absence of even the official data. Like, there is only 53% data, like the authentic data present over here. Yet their contribution often remain underrepresented in national reviews. Like the VNR were designed as a platform to evaluate and to check the data, to check it's not just about the report, it's more than the report, as we have the person Fermi has already mentioned. It is about challenges, innovations, and even within the communities to enhance the SDGs outcomes, as well as inform the framework of the future. When young people and grassroots organizations are included, not just as like the consultees, but as the co-authors of VNRs and VLRs, contributing across planning, implementation, and reviews. We are like moving closer to transformative spirit of 2025 agenda in leaving no one behind. Let me now share the 3 key lessons which I have learned from working in the civil society organization in the region. First is inclusion must be institutionalized, not improvised. We often see youth consultations as symbolic, held just before reports are finalized. But government should establish structured mechanisms for civil society and youth for the integration across all the phases of the meaningfully contribution with data, local indicators, remedial measures, qualitative insights to track transformative as well as monitoring insights throughout the year. It's not just about before finalizing everything. Like there should be a meaningful participation of youth and civil societies at each level. Secondly, localization must be the main strategy, not a side activity. The VLR through a newer tool such as we are the tech savvy generation, we always talk about digitalization. So I think that the newer tools must be introduced as citizen-led data initiatives, which hold immense potential. This will definitely bridge up the gap between policy and people, counting what actually counts, showing how cities and local governments translate SDGs into community realities. Encouraging youth-led, community-driven VLRs can amplify local innovations, from sustainable farming initiatives to digital inclusion, projects that often go unnoticed in national reports, like the activities and the projects which the CSOs are doing in their capacity usually get unnoticed whenever they talk about the national level projects. Later, as well as context-specific recommendations for reforms grounded in the merger of science and indigenous wisdom. Third, but the most important thing is accountability must be mutual. Civil society has a responsibility to present evidence-based solution-oriented narratives, not just highlight gaps and co-create pathways for progress, shaping the future. I think that collaborative dashboards, citizen data, and youth-led monitoring tools can strengthen national reporting system as well as qualitative insights to bring number of life in the spirit of true transformation on the ground. As if I talk about Youth Advocacy Network, for instance, we have seen how engaging young people, young volunteers in SDGs monitoring not just build both capacity and ownership, but they learn. They don't just learn about the goals, they actually live by them by broadening their application to the wider communities. The SDGs will not only accelerate young people, see themselves at the very heart of it as partners in progress, not passive beneficiaries. As we move forward, let us ensure that every VNR and VLR becomes a mirror, not just of government commitments, but of collective action reflecting whole of a society approach, because sustainable development can never be achieved in conference halls. It can be achieved, it must be built in classrooms, hospitals, communities, and grassroots level through the courage of the people who believe in the reality of dreams to catalyze the change and the future for possible. That's all from my side. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Ms. Minuna. Really excellently articulated recommendations of inclusion in an institutional and systemic manner, localization, and mutual accountability. Thank you.
so much.
We just have one more message, and it's actually, I think it's going to be very interesting. I haven't listened to this yet. It's a video message from Dr. Salim Raihan, who's the professor of economics in the University of Dhaka and the executive director for of SANEM in Bangladesh. He was going to join online, but then he had something he had to attend to, so he kindly put together a video message. So please run the video.
I thank the organizers for inviting me to this important session of the conference. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to attend in person or join online. While this video is streaming, I am boarding a flight. Let me begin by saying that the processes of the voluntary national reviews, the VNRs, and their subnational counterparts, the voluntary local reviews or VLRs, offer a very instructive window into how countries and local governments are trying to accelerate progress on the Sustainable Development Goals. From this perspective, South Asia provides a particularly interesting case. It's a region where rapid urbanization, demographic transition, climate vulnerability, and ambitious development goals are converging, creating both challenges and opportunities. What I'd like to do in my brief remarks is threefold. First, to reflect on what the VNRs and VLRs actually are and why they matter. Second, to look at how South Asian experiences with these mechanisms are evolving. And third, to consider what lessons we might draw for accelerating SDG implementation in the region. So to begin, what are the VNRs and VLRs? A voluntary national review is essentially a country-led process where a government presents its progress, challenges, and lessons in implementing the 2030 Agenda for SDGs. In other words, it is not just a report, it's meant to be a process of reflection to facilitate peer learning, mobilize stakeholders, strengthen institutional frameworks, and map out pathways for achieving the SDGs. Now, VLRs take this one step closer to people's everyday realities. These are local reviews done by cities, municipalities, or provinces that allow local governments to assess how they are performing against the SDGs. They are not formally embedded in the UN's global review system yet, but they play a crucial role because they bring local action into the global narrative of sustainable development, and that's very powerful. Now, why do these reviews matter today in the current global context? We are dealing with multiple overlapping crises. Sluggish progress on many SDG targets, widening inequality, the damaging effects of COVID, climate shocks, and geopolitical shocks and uncertainty. Against that backdrop, the review processes, both VNRs and VLRs, are not just compliance or reporting exercises. They become strategic tools. They allow countries and localities to diagnose where implementation is stalling, where progress is possible, and how action can be mobilized across different levels of government in an inclusive way. So in simple words, they help us move from what we have done to what needs to be done next and how. So turning to South Asia, the region faces a unique set of challenges when it comes to SDG acceleration. We have high poverty and informality, very young populations, climate vulnerability, floods, droughts, rising sea level, and huge urbanization pressures. Add to that data gaps, fragmented governance, and limited fiscal space, and the difficulty of coordinated implementation becomes clear. So in this context, what lessons can VNRs and VLRs offer? Let me highlight three. First, VNRs can create a national sense of accountability and coherence. Preparing a VNR requires combination across ministries, local governments, civil society, and the private sector. It forces a whole of government and whole of society reflection. Where are we on the SDGs? What's working and what's not? And what needs to be changed? In countries like those in South Asia, while institutional silos are strong and coordination between national and local levels is often weak. This process can be transformative. It can help align national development plans with SDGs, identify gaps, and prioritize better in resource-constrained context. Second, the rise of VLRs is a crucial development. They localize the SDGs, bringing the global agenda into cities and towns where people actually live and where policies have immediate impact. For example, cities like Dhulikhel in Nepal or some municipalities in Bangladesh have begun mapping their own SDG trajectories and aligning their local planning with national frameworks. This signals a subtle but important shift from a top-down national approach to a more participatory, locally owned process. In other words, the SDGs begin to belong to the local level, not just to national governments. The third, combining VNRs and VLRs strengthens what we call multi-level governance. When local reviews are integrated into national processes, they help bridge the vertical divide between national and subnational levels. That's critical in South Asia, where data systems, planning frameworks, and accountability mechanisms often operate in isolation. Embedding VLRs into national frameworks means national plans reflect local realities, and local plans draw from national priorities. A virtuous cycle that makes implementation more coherent. Of course, there are challenges. Data and statistical capacity is one major issue. VNRs depend on timely disaggregated data, but in many South Asian countries, national statistical systems are under-resourced and subnational data is even weaker. Without reliable data, reviews risk becoming descriptive rather than diagnostic. So investing in data systems and empowering national statistical offices is absolutely essential. Another challenge is inclusivity. The principle of leave no one behind is central to SDGs, yet review processes can sometimes become technocratic, limited to governments and experts. In South Asia, with its large informal economies and socially excluded groups, ensuring that all voices are heard, especially at the local level, is crucial. And finally, the voluntary nature of these processes is a double-edged sword. It encourages ownership and flexibility, but also risks selective reporting and weak follow-through. Unless local reviews are adequately institutionalized, their impact may remain limited. Despite these caveats, there are positive lessons too. One key lesson is prioritization. No country can do everything at once. The review processes force government to identify where they stand and what their biggest gaps are and where to focus efforts. Another is stakeholder mobilization. The VNR and VLR frameworks both emphasize multi-stakeholder engagement, bringing in the private sector, civil society, academia, youth, and local governments. We have seen encouraging examples like in Maldives, where youth groups, NGOs, and city officials jointly reviewed local progress on SDGs. That kind of participatory process deepens ownership and accountability. And finally, localization itself can be a source of innovation. Cities and local governments are experimenting, crafting locally tailored solutions, sharing peer lessons, and integrating climate and inclusion goals into their local plans. So to put all this together, what does this imply for SDG acceleration in South Asia? First, national governments should treat the VNRs not merely as reporting tools, but as catalysts for reform and coordination. Second, local governments should embrace VLRs as an opportunity to connect global goals with local realities. Third, there needs to be stronger linkages between the two, vertical coherence, capacity support, and policy alignment, so that local insights feed into national strategies and national policies empower local action. Fourth, investment in data and subnational monitoring is indispensable. And finally, reviews must lead to implementation. The real value lies not in the report itself, but in the reforms, partnerships, and investment that follow. To conclude, the VNRs and VLRs may seem administrative on the surface, but in reality, they are powerful vehicles for change. In a region like South Asia, where national ambitions, local realities, and global commitments are all intersect, they provide an opportunity to connect the dots. In simple words, if we can use these tools to strengthen coherence, deepen data-driven planning, and localize the SDGs, then meaningful acceleration becomes a real possibility. Ultimately, reviews are not ends in themselves. They are catalysts for action. And if South harness them that way, then perhaps the 2030 horizon will come a little closer within reach.
Great, thank you very much. Actually, in ASEAN, I think they're thinking of doing a voluntary regional review of Southeast Asia, one day perhaps in this region too. I'd like to open the floor for questions or any contributions anybody would like to take. We'll take a few together and then let's see how it flows. Go back to the panel and speakers. Yes, Daya. So we need a microphone to.
Thank you so much for all the presenters. Yeah, I have some questions. But
We know you, but can you still introduce yourself? Because some people
sorry.
may not.
My name is Daya Sagar Srestha. I'm South and Southwest Asia focal point of Asia Pacific Regional CSO Engagement Mechanism. And this is a big platform of Asia Pacific region and closely working with UNSCAP. And my mother organization is National Campaign for Sustainable Development Nepal. My question is related to the three government representatives. I want to say government representatives from Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. My first question is how your country has developed mechanism or taken actions to generate disaggregated data. Number one. And after voluntary national reviews, after preparation of voluntary national reviews and presentation those reports in high level political forums, what are your actions, after, I mean the post VNR actions of your countries? And number three question is, what are your governments are doing to build enabling environment for civil society organization, which is very important for the meaningful participation of civil society organization in VNR process? And how many local governments have done voluntary local reviews in your countries? And how voluntary local reviews are linked with voluntary national reviews in your countries? Thank you. These are my some questions. I hope to get the answer from the government representatives here.
Okay, that's a lot. So I think we go to answers immediately and then others will take in a second round. So let me start with Bhutan. Did you hear the question? I mean, answer what you're to answer. It's about disaggregated data. It's about what's the action after the VNR and HLPF, and how to build environment for civil society participation and how it integrates or connects to the national planning process.
Right. Thank you. On the first two questions, basically, while we are, the Prime Minister's Office is the overall coordinating agency for SDGs, we work very closely with our National Statistics Bureau, which is the data lead for SDGs. And the Statistics Bureau, they identify these data and combine a range of national survey data, administrative data, and spatial and geographic data. Also because this agency is most capable in terms of enabling an intersectional analysis and showing how gender, disability, income, and education interact. This is how we have applied multidimensional disaggregation across SDGs. Along with that, a lot of the disaggregated national data is produced through our different statistic systems and surveys, such as our housing and census system, the labor force surveys, and health and education information management systems, which are already in place. So basically, with the help of the National Statistics Bureau and agency-specific task force members, we generate a lot of these multi-sectoral disaggregate data specifically for analyzing VNRs. On the second question, in terms of taking forward after the VNR report is generated and presented, for now we are looking forward to really, because we do not have localized reviews at the moment, we are going to take forward the sensitization of this VNR progress at a very local level by sensitizing all the local government as well as citizens. At the same time, we are looking forward to more peer learning and exchange events to strengthen our approaches. And really, this will, again, loop back into informing the planning process, not just at the national level, but also at a very local government level as well. Thank you.
Anything on the civil society space?
Right. Sorry. Well, the civil society in Bhutan have a very, I say, they have a heightened space in terms of voicing out and decision-making progress as well. We have a civil society organizations authority that really works closely with the government, especially with the Prime Minister's office as well. So in terms of all national planning progress process and all any important national deliberation or policy formulation process, then the civil society organization is one of the main participants, and a lot of data and information, especially qualitative information, are sourced through these organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Sri Lanka.
Yeah, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. From Sri Lankan perspectives, we do have a National Steering Committee, which is chaired by Honorable Prime Minister, and it comprises with all the line agencies, ministries, and that is the national level mechanism that we have established to monitor, guide all the stakeholder institutes. And also the recently elected government, they do have national digitalization policy. Under that, we are going to have kind of institute or strengthening the institutions with the digitization systems, and also we try to leverage technologies, including utilize digital tools and mobile data collection, and also try to introduce GIS technology and data management platforms. There are a number of activities going on. Meantime, we are working with the institutes to train government officials and statisticians and local authorities on methods for collecting, managing, and analyzing how they can disaggregate the data to improve data quality. Likewise, there are a lot of initiatives introduced, but only thing is there are some limitations from the government side, because you know that the economic hardship that we had during recent past, and also still we are in the recovery process. So we do have some challenges on allocation of financing on these aspects, but still there are certain provisions allocated by the government to strengthen this area. And when it comes to the civil society, of course, we are working with them closely. Sustainable Development Council is working with them, and also the steering committee working with them, and we get their inputs for develop whatever the mechanisms available for data collection and get their feedback. We are going to establish formal engagement mechanism with civil societies and also their organizations. And also we working with them on capacity building and awareness kind of initiatives with the local institutes to collect data and feed their data to our data collection mechanism. And also we create a kind of feedback loops to get the data and get the insights from them to develop our mechanisms and also strengthen this VNR and VLR processes. So they are working with us even during the steering committee and also data collection, because we are planning to have a VLR in parallelly to VNR, because originally we had only 2 VNRs. So from Sri Lankan perspectives, that's what I would like to highlight.
Thank you very much. Bangladesh?
Again, let me not repeat some of these points about data and civil society engagement. Personally, if you ask me, I mean, as post-VNR action, since now, again, we are going through an interim dispensation and the elections are due early February. So what we would probably like to see that the different political parties, they actually tap into the VNR report and the outcome that we have received and try to factor that into their manifestos. That would be the best way possible. I mean, since they are the people's voice, they are the people's representative, if they could actually embrace that, I mean, that exercise, that would be the most meaningful outcome that we can think about. In case it doesn't happen, any new government that comes into place, of course, there would be an expectation through popular mandate that they would be rolling out their own national development strategies from middle to long term. And there probably, again, the VNR report itself, this whole exercise, would act as a guiding point for them as to how to calibrate or even recalibrate some of the policy options that we have at our disposal. So again, looking forward, going forward, at least from the bureaucracy side, that is probably the most effective outcome from the VNR exercise that we would like to envisage. Thank you.
Any other question?
Thanks, moderator. We got online questions from Mahendra Prasad Kanel, Nepal, and his question is directly addressed to Ms. Lamichin Hani, and he is asking, by recent views, localization of SDGs in Nepal is not satisfactory, as any of the local government didn't submit their performance for VLR. If they are interested in this, how is the plan to assist them by government and non-government sector to data analysis and evaluation of SDG? Next inquiry is, did you find until now that civil society report, such as Spotlight's report adopted by government of Nepal during preparation of VNR, was it complementary? Thank you.
Did you say you have more questions or just the only one?
Oh, there are 3 questions in one go.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, any others? Because in light of time, I just want to quickly. No? Okay, thank you. So that's a lot, Ms. Shilpa.
Thank you so much. So I captured some of the things that was there. So one of the thing was about localization not being satisfactory and how we can assist them. So I think the concept of localization and voluntary local reviews is very new to the local government. we have been talking about the SDG trackers, the tools, how we should be tracking the information regarding based on the data that we have. And I think it's technical for the municipalities, and a lot of municipalities do not have the capacity of analyzing those data and reporting itself. So I think one way is the capacity building or supporting of the local levels and municipalities to actually track the progresses within their localities and within their municipalities. And definitely youth organizations and civil society organizations can play a big role in this by supporting them to have that analysis. And regarding the report that you mentioned about the civil society report, the spotlight report that we prepared. No. So Nepal's government has been very liberal in terms of the participation of civil society organizations, because I recall my participation in the VNR in 2024, where they had formed the technical committee comprising of the government institutions from different ministries, from different divisions, and also the civil society representatives were there, where so yeah, I was talking about the committee that our government made. And as we had our reports in our hand, we presented those reports to the government, and government had presentations, made certain presentations that they want to showcase during the VNR session in New York. And they also seeked for the feedback on those reports, and if we had been missing anything, or if they want us to add anything regarding the context and the situation. So I think there has been a good engagement, and also they are very positive about the reports that we present to them, and we are very happy with how we have been engaging. But also we, as my fellow panelists mentioned, we need the institutionalized mechanism, because all these things happening, they are mostly happening on goodwill, but not in the policy. So if there will be such mechanisms, policies of engagement of young people and civil society organizations, then that would be very sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe one recommendation out of these is to institutionalize these processes. Juliet, are you still online? I'd like to ask you what you take away from this very rich discussion we just had.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, audio, can you raise the volume a little bit?
Okay, great. Now, this has been a very rich discussion, and I think you've heard it best from those who've been close to the process. But I think having it be really a whole of government approach for the VNR and VLR, and then finding the links from the global to the regional to the sub-regional here today, the national and local level, and doing our best to have that be iterative, a feedback loop. And SCAP is here to also help support that, because that's often a question, how to integrate the local data in the national conversation and then take it up all the way to the global level. And then I think including, being inclusive, whether that's making sure we have the data to really show what's happening, who may be left behind, understand in a diagnostic way. And then I think this issue that Shilpa also just mentioned of institutionalizing. So whether that's taking from the VNR and putting it in documents, linking with development planning processes and budgeting, or really making sure that all of those voices can continue to be part of processes beyond the VNR or the VLR. So I'll leave it at that, because I'm also conscious of the time and very grateful to learn and hear from all of you.
Thanks so much, Juliet. So we look forward to also in SCAP, the Asia Pacific Forum for Sustainable Development in Bangkok will be joined by other sub-regions as well. I hope some of you can participate, maybe physically, but also online in this discussion. I mean, I'm just reflecting that, it also is a means of public information, public awareness raising too, to have these kinds of voluntary, well, national reviews, local reviews. I think, if it is institutionalized within the government structures or the national structures, the stronger it gets. And I think it is also, like for democracy, elections is not enough, and these processes can help really inform and have maybe more less stake, kind of less charged, politically charged environment to actually talk about real issues and what the solutions are without worrying about, okay, who am I going to vote for? Who are you going to vote for? That kind of thing. So anyway, I'd really like to thank all the speakers here on the dais, here also online. Really, we heard you really clearly, and all the audience here as well. So thank you. And I think that concludes the VNR VLR. Please continue with the Sustainable Development Council Week. Thank you so much.